Good morning. Thanks for joining me. This is the day 17 of our Catholic audio Bible and Bible study, where we read the Bible one day at a time, going from Genesis all the way to Revelation. We're on day 17, so we are pretty new in the Bible. We're still in Genesis. I'm glad you're able to join me. And if you are new today, you can check out my playlist and catch days 1 to 16, also in Genesis, of course, since we are just getting started. And if you are coming back, welcome back to you, and I'm glad that you are here. So my name is Caroline, and we are today, again, it's day 17, we're reading chapters 38 and 39 of Genesis, and then we talk briefly about what, the highlights, the important topics within those chapters, and then we'll pick it up again tomorrow with chapter 40 in Genesis. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's chapter 38, Judah and Tamar. It happened at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and settled near a certain Adullamite whose name was Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. He married her and went into her. She conceived and bore a son, and he named him Er. Again she conceived and bore a son whom she named Onan. Yet again she bore a son, and she named him Shelah. She was in Chezib when she bore him. Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, "Go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her. Raise up offspring for your brother." But since Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, he spilled his semen on the ground whenever he went into his brother's wife, so that he would not give offspring to his brother. What he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up," for he feared that he too would die like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. In course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. When Judah's time of mourning was over, he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers, he and his friend Hira the Adullamite. When Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep," she put off her widow's garments, put on a veil, wrapped herself up, and sat down at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. She saw that Shelah was grown up, yet she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He went over to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me come in to you," for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me, that you may come in to me?" He answered, "I will send you a kid from the flock." And she said, "Only if you give me a pledge." "Until you send it," he said. "What pledge shall I give you?" She replied, "Your signet and your cord, and the staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her, and he went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she got up and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. When Judah sent the kid by his friend the Adullamite to recover the pledge from the woman, he could not find her. He asked the townspeople, "Where is the temple prostitute who was at Enaim by the wayside?" But they said, "No prostitute has been here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I have not found her. Moreover, the townspeople said, 'No prostitute has been here.'" Judah replied, "Let her keep the things as her own, and otherwise we will be laughed at. You see, I sent this kid, and you could not find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the whore. Moreover, she is pregnant as a result of whoredom." And Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." As she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law, "It was the owner of these who made me pregnant." And she said, "Take note, please, whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff." Then Judah acknowledged them and said, "She is in the right more than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he did not lie with her again." Excuse me. When the time of her delivery came, there were twins in her womb. While she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and bound on his hand a crimson thread, saying, "This one came out first." But just then he drew back his hand, and out came his brother, and she said, "What a breach you have made for yourself." Therefore he was named Perez. Afterwards his brother came out with a crimson thread on his hand, and he was named Zerah. Joseph and Potiphar's wife, chapter 39. Now Joseph was taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. He was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him. He made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer of his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had, in house and field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and with him there he had no concern for anything but the food that he ate. Now Joseph was handsome and good-looking, and after a time his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, with me here, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my hand. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except yourself, because you are his wife. How then could I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not consent to lie beside her or to be with her. One day, however, when he went into the house to do his work, and while no one else was in the house, she caught hold of his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled outside, she called out to the members of her household and said to them, "See, my husband has brought among us a Hebrew to insult us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And when he heard me raise my voice and cry out, he left his garment beside me and fled outside. Then she kept his garment by her until his master came home. And she told him the same story, saying, 'The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came in to me to insult me. But as soon as I raised my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled outside.' When his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, saying, 'This is the way your servant treated me,' he became enraged. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. He remained there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love. He gave him favor in the sight of the chief jailer. The chief jailer committed to Joseph's care all the prisoners who were in the prison, and whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The chief jailer paid no heed to anything that was in Joseph's care, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper." That's the end of that chapter. So in chapter 38, we have the story of Judah and Tamar. Tamar being the daughter-in-law of Judah. So Judah marries a Canaanite woman, and they have 3 sons. And of the 3 sons, Tamar is married to the first son, the oldest, the firstborn, and he was evil in the sight of the Lord, and God took him. He died. And part of the Jewish custom in those times, for quite a while we see in the Bible, is a wife, a woman, marries the firstborn, the eldest son, and if he dies and they do not have children, then the wife is then widow, is married to the next son, and when they have children, the children are really under the older son's lineage and a descendant of the older son, not the next son. So the next son that married Tamar was upset at that. He didn't want to have children for his brother's sake. And so God saw that he was doing evil in his sight, and so he killed him also. Now the youngest son was growing up and not old enough yet to be married to Tamar. And so Judah also was afraid. And so he didn't want his son to die. He didn't know why his older son and the younger son had been killed. So he tells his daughter-in-law, as now a widow, go and be a widow in your father's house. And then when my youngest son becomes of age, I will marry the two of you. And then you can, hopefully have descendants and children. And so time goes by. The son, Shelah, he grows up, but Judah does not reach out to the daughter-in-law in her father's house to marry them. And so Tamar sees this, and she's very clever, but very forthright. For women, to be married and to have children, it is the greatest desire of them. It is the greatest wish and prayer for them to have, of course, sons. That is the most important thing. But here she was married to two brothers, no children, through no fault of her own. And now she is a widow, and she's supposed to be married to the son of Judah, the third son of Judah, and Judah doesn't have that happen. And so she dresses herself as a prostitute. She knows that Judah is coming to shear his sheep. And so she sits by the roadside to the town where Judah is going. And he sees her, and he wants to go into her, his wife having passed, and he had gone through his whole time of mourning. And so Tamar tricks him into sleeping with her, and she's covered her face. She has asked for his signet ring. She has asked for his staff and the cord from his clothing. Jewish men had tassels and cords on their clothing. And so she's asked for all of these as a pledge. He said he was going to send her a kid goat from his flock. And so she keeps this pledged goods from him. After they sleep together, she conceives right then and there, and then she disappears. And when Judah sends his friend in to find her, to give her this kid goat and receive his things back, he doesn't get them. He later finds out that his daughter-in-law has slept with someone and is now pregnant and wants to enact the law of that land, which was that the adulterer would be killed. And so he calls for her, and she comes out with these pledged goods and says, "This is the man that has caused me to conceive." And so he sees, Judah, that these were his things, and he realizes his sin, that he had pledged to have his son marry her, and he did not go through with that. And so she's pregnant, and he says, she is in the right more than I am. She has twins, one of them being named Perez and the other Zerah. And from her lineage, Jesus, right through the line, we will see that later. So it's very, very important with her twins, and obviously coming from the descendants of Judah. That is Jesus. And so in chapter 39, we see Joseph once again, and he is taken from the Ishmaelites to Potiphar, who is an official of Pharaoh in Egypt. Joseph goes into his home, and the Lord is with Joseph. Joseph is blessed by God. God has a plan for Joseph. That, if you remember in the other chapters, the dreams that Joseph has seen about his importance, his leadership, and he's blessed by God. He is in the Egyptian's house, and the Egyptian Potiphar gives him everything he has, of course, except for his wife. And the wife has her eyes on him. Joseph being a tall, good-looking, young Israelite, Hebrew, and she, day after day, tries to get him to sleep with her, and he refuses. He is a righteous man, and she finally, one day, when no one else was in the house, tricks him. He tosses off his garment and runs out of the house, and she uses that to her husband and says, "Look what this Hebrew has done to me. He left his garment here. He has insulted me." And the Egyptian Potiphar is enraged, angry. Whether or not he knows what his wife had done, he has to stand by his wife, and he sends Joseph to the Pharaoh's prison. And so we leave off with Joseph being in the Pharaoh's prison. And he is also still, God is by his side and stays with him. God has a plan for him. And so we see him prospering even in the jail, this prison. And so, he rises in the ranks within the prison itself, but yet he's still in prison. So, Joseph is also going through a season with God, a very long season of divine preparation. So we see that in this chapter 39. So a lot to unpack there, very interesting. We're starting to see this, what happens with Joseph, and we'll continue with that in chapter 40 tomorrow. I hope that you will join us again tomorrow in our reading and audio Bible series. With that, I wish you a very good rest of your day. Please like, share, comment. Glad to see comments if you would like. And otherwise, until tomorrow.